Amorion was a city where history wasn't just written, it was aggressively debated and then repeatedly set on fire. This ancient city was once one of the most important cities in what we now call Turkey, and one of the richest in all the Byzantine Empire. It was also one of its most dangerous places to live. People who lived at Amorion carried testicles so big they were forced to invent the wheelbarrow, and swords so large the men routinely fell sideways. I am Ancient Swan, and this is Amorion, and stick around to find out what parts of that sentence were true, and not in fact absolute bollocks made up by me, myself and yours truly. Nestled in Phrygia, Amorion was once a thriving hub of trade, military strategy, and the kind of political intrigue that would make modern politicians look like amateurs. Amorion was like that one friend who always gets dragged into drama. It was constantly under siege, attacked and rebuilt, only to be attacked again. But he's crazy and fun and knows some really important people, so you stick around for the laughs and the contacts. The Byzantines fortified it, the Arabs sacked it, and at one point it was so important that the Caliph al-Mu'tasim launched an entire military campaign just to burn Amorion to the ground. That's right. This wasn't just a casual raid, it was a full-blown, meticulously planned destruction. Imagine being so significant that someone wakes up one morning and says, "Fuck that place in particular. Let's dedicate an entire military operation just to ruining their day and making them cry." But Amorion wasn't just about war and destruction. It was also a centre of culture, trade and some truly spectacular arguments over whose turn it was to pay for dinner. The city minted its own coins, which means it had enough economic clout to say, "We don't need your money, we'll make our own." That's the kind of confidence we should all aspire to. The city began minting its own coins, beginning around 133 BC, and continued until the 3rd century AD, indicating its maturity as a settlement and military importance during the pre-Byzantine period. Amorion, during this period, was a prestigious and prosperous city. And let's not forget the people. Amorion produced emperors, generals, and probably a few philosophers who spent their days yelling about the meaning of life while avoiding the latest invasion. The Amorion dynasty even ruled the Byzantine Empire for a while, proving that if you survive enough sieges, eventually someone will just hand you the crown and say, "Fine, you win." The city was fortified by the Emperor Zeno in the 5th century, but still the city did not rise to its greatest height until the 7th century. Its strategic location in Central Asia Minor, present-day Turkey, made the city a vital stronghold against the armies of the Umayyad Caliphate following the Muslim conquest of the Levant. The Byzantines were right, of course, and they were wise to prepare, because the Muslim armies were indeed on their way to take names and kick ass. The first attack came in AD 646, when the city was targeted by the armies of Muawiyah I. Amorion survived this first attack, but then capitulated 20 years later to Abd al-Rahman ibn Khalid, and briefly falling under Muslim control. Byzantium wasn't finished, of course, and came back to retake Amorion a few years later. Over the next 2 centuries, Amorion remained a frequent target of Muslim raids into Asia Minor, especially during the great sieges of 716 and 796. Imagine living in Amorion during this time, constantly living on the front line, always afraid of the next attack, constant raids into your land, stealing your sheep, your women, and your stash. Screw that! I would be so out of there so early doors. I'd be a refugee the first time I saw an angry gust of wind. Bollocks to waiting for the cavalry to run at me with swords on horses. Fuck this shit with a giant barge pole. I'm off. Cheerio. Bye-bye. Arrivederci and adios. Here I come, Great Britain. I know you don't exist yet, but I'll sure as hell help you build it. Goodbye, Amorion, and best of luck. A good century or two after Ancient Swan would have disappeared into the mist, Amorion became capital of the Byzantine province of Anatolikon in the early 9th century AD. Anatolikon was the largest and senior-most of the Byzantine provinces, and its military governors, or strategoi, were powerful individuals, several of them rising to the imperial throne or launching failed rebellions to capture it. Amorion, during this time, must have been like living in some Game of Thrones bullshit, but in a less medieval-ish setting and more white and marbly and stuff. Is marbly a word, or did I just make that up? I've been doing that a lot recently, just making up shit and thinking it sounds right. Marbly, like with more marble. Screw it, I'm sticking with it. Call Oxford and Cambridge. Let them know, thank you. Anatolikon and its army played an important role in the Arab-Byzantine wars of the 7th to 10th centuries, dedicating many lost soldiers to its defence and recapture, after which it enjoyed a period of relative peace that lasted until its final conquest by the Seljuk Turks in the late 1070s. The Seljuks came along, did their thing, and left the place generally in a state of what my mum would refer to as an absolute shithole. Get this place cleaned! And so they did. I can't be sure if they were channeling the future spirit of my own mother, but I also can't be sure they weren't. Things got cleaned up and better again in Amorion for the next few decades. In 820 AD, an Amorion Michael II ascended to the Byzantine throne, establishing the Amorion dynasty. This began the period of the city's greatest prosperity, when it became the largest city in Asia Minor. Its status, however, as the native city of the reigning dynasty also spelled its doom. Remember that mad bastard on a vengeance that I mentioned earlier? Well, here he comes with a personal vendetta against the city of Amorion. In the year of our great spaghetti monster, 838 AD, the Caliph al-Mutasim launched a campaign specifically against the city. His vengeance was successfully served cold, as the city was captured and razed to the ground. Like my wife, when I told her how much this new laptop cost. The razing of Amorion was also captured and recounted in a poem by the Arab Muslim poet Abu Tamam. I don't have that poem on hand because I couldn't find it, so instead I will read this one, which I absolutely did just make up right now. Amorion, Amorion, cheerio, cheerio. You once were quite huge, but now not really much so. We killed all your men and shat on your floor. I'm taking your women after I've finished pissing on this door. You had big high buildings, till we knocked them all down. There used to be a shop over there. Now it's just that one old woman crying with a frown. It was fun while it lasted, but I'm off for now, after we've picked this place clean and we're taking those cows. Amorion, Amorion, cheerio, cheerio. That's what you get for fighting back. Now enjoy your shit show. It is an absolute masterpiece of writing, I'm sure you will agree, and you can of course fully understand why it now resides within the annals of this long-gone great historical Arab writer. Despite being bitch-slapped into the next decade by the Muslim armies of 838 AD, Amorion was quickly rebuilt and re-entered service as an important Byzantine city. For almost 100 years, the rebuilt Amorion managed to go without seeing an invading army of the Muslim caliphates. That dem history do be repeating, though, and the next angry guy with a chip on his shoulder wasn't too far away. In 931 AD, a former abused slave, but now just a very angry man named Thamal al-Dulafi reached the gates of Amorion. Before promptly setting those gates on fire, burning those gates to the ground, knocking down what little was left remaining of those gates, and then stabbing the shit out of anyone who had even so much as once seen a gate. Thamal al-Dulafi was also a eunuch, by the way, which also may go some way to explaining the angry man and his angry habits. And in case anyone doesn't know what a eunuch is a male who, at an early age, has had his penis lopped off by a big giant chopping axe before having said penis thrown away into the local rubbish heap and eaten by a rat. Now, I will be completely and utterly honest here. I have never been a slave without a penis. But I might imagine that if I was, I'd probably also want to destroy a city or two and just go around furiously fucking shit up in general. And so Amorion fell and was raised once again under the sword of a cockless, angry prick on a mission. But you know what, and by this point you've really got to hand it to the folks who'd made the decision that this was where their home was, and they weren't going anywhere, because Amorion was rebuilt and refunctioned as a city once again. And Amorion remained an active Byzantine city for some time yet, until the Battle of Manzikert. In 1071 AD, the Seljuk Empire returned for one final big push. The Byzantines were crushed and the Byzantine Empire absolutely devastated. For many, this is the beginning of the end of the Byzantine Empire, and by 1080 AD, the Seljuk armies had captured an area of 78,000 square kilometers, or 30,000 square miles. By the time the Ottomans rolled in at the tail end of the 13th century, Amorion was little more than a historical footnote. But this once great city's legacy lives on, because if history teaches us anything, it's that being repeatedly destroyed is just another way of saying we were important enough to be noticed, which, coincidentally, is exactly what my mother dearest used to tell me when I was a wee bambino baby child, and my bigger brother used to come over and destroy all my stuff just for the crack. "Don't worry," my mum used to say, "it's only because he's jealous." I'm not sure in what way she was trying to help, because it was difficult to care about my brother's jealousy whilst watching my new bike slide to the bottom of the local pond. Poor Amorion, I feel your pain. So here's to Amorion, a city that refused to go quietly, a place where history was made, lost and made again, lost again, remade, re-lost, and eventually ground into a fine dust. If you ever find yourself wandering through the fine dust and ruins of Amorion, take a moment to appreciate the sheer resilience of a city that spent centuries getting knocked down and still managed to leave its mark. And if you listen closely, you might just hear the echoes of a Byzantine merchant yelling, "I bloody knew I should have disappeared years ago," with Ancient Swan. Now, as per literally never, not once, much of the footage in this video comes from the map I went and made for the game, Cities Skylines 2. And if you want to build your city here, then feel free to follow El Linko in the description below. And assuming you'll be wanting to know the info for that map, listen to the next bit intensely, 'cause here it comes like a bullet train. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe too if you love the things I love. It's important to life as we know it, and I appreciate it all muchly. And don't let me forget to thank the Earth's most perfect people, the Patreons of Ancient Swan, who shall be gloriously named as DD, George H, Merlici I, Anthony T, and Stephen, who are the lights that light my life. Right, now here's the map information. Climate -3 to 19 degrees Celsius. Buildable area 87%. Outside connections, roads, rail, sea, air, power. Natural resources. Wheat 64 square kilometers. Forest 111 kilotons or 92 kilotons. Oil 86 kilotons. Terrain mostly flat. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else too. That's all. That was Amorion. And these are the eternal sounds of me leaving the room. Peace, love, and Amorion. Goo!